If you want to doom your future, all you have to do is forget about your past. Right now, all around you, a massive effort is underway to rewrite our history. It's an attempt to push a secular, woke agenda on young people. So, what should you do about it? That's what we're going to talk about on today's episode of the Creation Today show.
We as Christ followers have an obligation and a responsibility to stand for the truth, not to argue with the lies. All that we call human history, money, poverty, ambition, war, prostitution, classes, empires, slavery, is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God, which will make him happy. It is a massive undertaking to change the direction of a culture that is absolutely steeped in the money made from slaves. But who are we to judge? We have a culture steeped in the money made from murdering babies.
Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Hey, to all my partners out there, great to see you guys hanging out with me. PK, good to see you. I just saw in the chat that you're joining us on the Grand Canyon tour. Oh my goodness, that is going to be awesome. Looking forward to that. Gary and Chris and Cheryl and Amber and Andrew and everybody else, great to have you guys hanging out with us. You're going to love today's conversation. You really are going to enjoy this. If you're new to the Creation Today show, by the way, I am your host, Eric Hovind. We are a discipleship program that gives you foundational truths that help you glorify God in everything you do. Our goal is to turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones on your journey to know Christ and make Christ known. My guest today says that if history is boring, then it's not history. And as someone who, I'll admit, fell asleep in way more classes of history than I can remember, I appreciate her approach to teaching history. Thousands have enjoyed her podcast, Real Cool History for Kids, because she has a passion to see kids not only learn history, but love it as well. She's the author of America's Story Series and the World Story Series. She's the mother of four who has homeschooled for 17 years, and I think I can get away with this. She's the female version of David Barton himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Angela O'Dell. Angela, welcome to the Creation Today show.
Wow, that was quite the build-up. David Barton, I don't think so.
Oh, come on, he's awesome. And I listened to your podcast.
He's amazing.
I heard your podcast. You got it, girl. I'm telling you, it's pretty cool. I love listening to that.
Oh, and you know what? I need to correct you on something. I homeschooled for 22 years.
Oh, 22. Oh, wow. 22 years now. Oh, my goodness. Yep. So you got a little bit of experience. Is that what you're saying?
Just a little.
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, tell me, forgive me. First of all, my brother Kent, he is the joke teller. He got that from my dad. He gave me a couple jokes, and I gotta try these out and find out how smart you are when it comes to history, since that's what you teach, okay? Do you know why, Angela, the early days of history are called the Dark Ages?
Because there wasn't electricity? I don't know.
No, because there were so many nights.
Kent,
I don't know if that one
did not go there.
Hey, how about this? And how was the Roman Empire divided? How did the empire get cut in half?
I have no idea. It's something dumb, isn't it?
With a pair of Caesars.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, Kent, nice try. So you have been studying history, and you have a show called Keepers of History, or that's your ministry. You've written books on this. You are known for saying, hey, we really have to teach history at the right level. I'm real curious where we're at today, what's going on today. Why do we right now need to be keepers of, as we're calling today's show, real history, or your title, Keepers of History? What's going on in our world?
I think the question is what's not going on in our world. It is such an attack. It's such an attack. And it's not just about history. It's about the human race. Actually, I go into this in this talk, so I don't want to say too much, but this is not a new war. It's just the current battle. It started when Satan tried to stage his heavenly coup in heaven, and really, that's kind of this is the new face of it, the new face. So yeah, it's really a war over who gets to decide what is real and what is truth.
Boy. Okay, so how did you get into this real quick before you start kind of giving us this presentation? What made you go, I've got to talk about this?
Well, it's everything I do, a why is always rooted in history, right? And I mean personal history, not like history of the United States or the world. It's personal history that creates your why you do things, and it becomes the passion. The fire that keeps it going. And mine happens to be the fact that I spent the first 17 and a half years of my life in a cult. I was conceived, born and raised in a cult for the first 17 and a half years of my life. So I spent that many years listening to lies about who God is and who I am and about the world around me. And so when God rescued me from that, and it's 30 years ago, he rescued me, and it has taken. Well, you know what? I'm not over. It's not going to be over till I'm dead. I'm not going to be whole until I stand before him, just like anybody else. But God has used the last 3 decades of my life to do just an immense healing, and it had to do with how I saw him. That was the root of it. So. Everything I do is about pointing people, and especially young people and children, to the heart of God. And that is why I do what I do, because I know what healing comes from being in the know about who God is. It's just like the new program that I'm creating. It's called Courageous Identity, because it is know God, know you. And it's true. It's this. We like to separate things out into subjects. This is history, this is science, this is philosophy, this is logic, and this, all these different things. But in reality, everything is meshed together. Everything is woven together because it all overlaps and shares the same characteristics that God gave it to make it come into being. So when we look at the world around us, we see the laws of nature and the laws of logic and all of the things that represent God's nature. So that's really where I come from. I just want kids to know, young people to know, the parents to know how much God loves them. He did not make a mistake putting them here at this time in history. So I know that he gave me my story to be able to connect with just so many people. It has allowed me to jump into the lives and to understand parts of different things that people have experienced and have overcome. So that's really where I came from. But as far as the history is concerned, as I was homeschooling my kids, and like I said, we're done now. Our youngest is in college. But as I was homeschooling our kids, I just couldn't find history that I really, really liked. There were history books about interesting things in history, but I would find myself reading them and then retelling it in a way that connected with the child's heart. And so my whole goal is heart-focused education. That's kind of my whole thing. So I believe that if you engage the heart, you win the war. And that is really what we're talking about today. Honestly, it's not just about history. It's about engaging our kids to help them to realize where they've come from, why they're here, and where they're going, and how they can connect to that journey.
That's awesome. I think of that passage in Luke. I was actually trying to find it. I'm like, I don't remember exactly which chapter it's in, but when Jesus literally says to his disciples, hey, if you abide in my truth, you talk about really knowing Christ. If you abide in my truth, then you will be my disciple. Then you will know the truth. Then the truth will set you free. So there really is a progression there of knowing God that leads to being set free that you're describing. And that is really cool. Well, I'm ready to jump in and learn from you how I need to be a keeper of history, of real history, and what our role as parents, as citizens, as hopefully Christians, if you're out there and you're a Christian watching this, like what is our role? What should we be doing? What do we need to be thinking when we think through history? So take us on a journey.
So we're not just keeping history, we're keeping real history.
Yes.
We're keeping it real here, people. So like I said before, the attack on history and historiography, which is the telling of history, right? There has been a war waged on that. And it's also on science and philosophy and logic and any discipline that is governed by absolutes. It's a war on who gets to decide what is real and what is truth. I always tell my history students that this war started when Satan staged his heavenly coup. He tried to overthrow the authority of God, and he's been trying to ever since. This is nothing new. But we know who has the last word. So the next 3 slides are going to be just a quick overview of simply the 3 takeaways that we're going to unpack throughout the rest of this session, okay? So the first one is we are not in a battle against flesh and blood. We get so distracted with this, you guys. We get so distracted. We are not fighting against the people who are trying to rewrite history, okay? We're not. The attack on history is not truly about the events of the people. It's about who we are as people now, right? It is about who we are now. It's always about identity. It's always about identity. We come out searching for who we are. And God says, hey, I made that on purpose. I made that hole there on purpose because I'm the only one that can complete you. And then number 3 is we as Christ followers have an obligation and responsibility to stand for the truth, not argue with the lies. We can get so distracted with arguing with the lies. That is not why we're here. We need to remember that we are the fight that we are in is not against something. It is for something. It's for the truth. It's for the youth of our generation. It's so easy to get stuck on all the things we hate that we see that are going on around us. But instead of focusing on that, we need to focus on our responsibility that God has given us. Because the youth of this generation are the ones that are falling prey to the lies more than anybody else. It's the youth of this generation. So let's go back to that. This is not a battle against flesh and blood. It's against the darknesses, the principalities of the air. We know this. We all know the armor of God. We all understand that, but do we operate from it? As we face what's going on in our culture, we must, above all things, use this truth as a filter, okay? This is a really big point. When we look at the world around us, it is so easy to go into a tailspin of fear. We react instead of being proactive, instead of making a plan to move forward in our lives in a way that actually will accomplish something. All we do is react to everything that's being thrown at us, and there is a lot being thrown at us. So in order to keep ourselves from freezing in fear, I always say we need to preach the truth of the gospel and our God-given purpose to our own hearts first. Okay? It's because the truth is nothing we can sense with our natural senses, including people. They're not our true enemy. We must remember that Satan is the father of lies, the creator of confusion, chaos, and division. I don't know about you, but I have seen so much of the telltale signs of Satan's work all around me that it makes me so, oh my goodness, it makes me so mad. The attack, especially on our kids, it just burns me. But we need to remember that we're not playing by his rules, okay? We know who's king, and we know how the story ends. We need to stay engaged and ready to think clearly. We are called to be influences for Christ in this culture to which we are assigned. We were not put here on accident, you guys. We are here for a reason, and it is time to step up the game. The battle is on. But we also
Real quick, Angela, real quick. I'm going, I find myself going, I don't think I appreciated what you're saying several years ago as much as I appreciate it right now, because I'm realizing the best thing to do is not get distracted with all the, oh my goodness, I got to swat that fly and swat that fly and swat that battle. So it's be somebody who presents the truth. And I'm realizing more and more that that is the reality. If we can be known for what we are proclaiming rather than what I am against, because we got so it's almost like it's easier in our culture today to be like, oh, I'm against that and I'm against that and I'm against that and I'm against that, instead of just saying, here's what I'm for, because that brings up stuff that, oh well, you can get more attention when you're talking about what you're against. But when you're saying, let me just share the truth and get that out there, boy, that is what we need. We need to be fighting the right tactics here and presenting the truth to the world. So true.
Absolutely. Because we are called to deal in truth and love. And I don't mean it as the world means it. I mean it as God has proclaimed truth and love. That is intertwined. You cannot have one without the other. Okay. No. So to keep history, we must learn how to think logically. To think logically is to think like God thinks, right?
Yes.
To align our thoughts with his. I don't know about you, but it seems like logic has blown the coop in this world. It seems there are so many contradictory terms, viewpoints, just so many. It's just part of the confusion and the lies and the chaos. God's mind determines truth, and our minds discover that truth. So if we want to learn what he thinks about something, where do we go?
To what he said.
Exactly. We have his word, right? We have his word. And although the validity of his word has been undermined for years, we know as Christ followers, it is his word and it can be trusted. And not only can it be trusted, it must be trusted, because it is the baseline of truth that we need to stand on, no matter what is going on around us. So
now, I know I have some skeptics out there that disagree with you on that, but for you skeptics and for my Christian friends, Angela is hitting the nail on the head here, guys. And this is, Angela, this is something that I feel like it's become more clear to me recently than it has in the past, because we've got, quote, evangelicals, Christians saying now, hey, don't argue with the secular world saying, well, this is what God says. Tell them, well, this is what Luke says, and this is what John says, and this is what Matthew says, and this is what Mark says, because they were the ones who wrote it. And it's like, that is a very subtle way of undermining this from being the Word of God, the oracles of God. It was God through Mark, God through Matthew, God through Luke that wrote these things. And that is a huge difference. If it's just John, if it's just Eric writing his account versus it's inspired by God, that's a major difference. You got to understand. So she's hitting the nail on the head.
If you can get rid of that second author that is the second author of every single book in the Bible, if we can undermine that united message that runs through the Bible, then we can chop it all up and it becomes as useless as any other book in our lives.
How do we know that? Because that's exactly what's happening today.
It's exactly what's happening.
Doing that in the world, and that is creeping its way into the church, and it's destroying real history. It's doing the exact thing that you're out here talking about. It's destroying real history.
Yeah. Well, in what better place to start than the true story of the ancient history? You know, seriously, true story of ancient history. I had somebody get so mad at me because I used, when I wrote the World Story 1, which is the story of the ancients, creation through the Romans, I used the Bible as my my spine. That's what I called it, my spine. And so there are readings throughout. And by the time the student gets through that book, they've read huge sections of the Bible, because I want them to understand that biblical history is world history. There is not a biblical history and a world history that just simultaneously happened. It is the same history. Okay. So here we go. We're going to continue on here. The attack on history is not truly about the events or people of the past. It's about who we are as people now. And many in this secular world, and unfortunately, many people who call themselves Christians, and I believe really do have a heart for God, are caught up in being tolerant and diverse and inclusive. Okay? They've bought into the lies taught in the critical race theory and the fluid gender doctrine. And don't argue with me that it isn't a doctrine. It most certainly is a doctrine. Anything that is held as a truth, a belief system as truth that governs our life, it is a doctrine. These false theories are based on being the judge and the jury, okay? And very few are found innocent in their courtrooms. There are massive agendas at play here. So many that I can't even get into it. There's no sense in even bringing any of them up, because we all know what they are. We all know that it's corruption in the government, and we know that it's corruption. It's corruption.
Yeah. But the way you say it right there, because that's what I find. If people think they are an animal now, if they're brought up with the evolution worldview and they think they're an animal, that affects the way they behave.
That's absolutely true.
If you can get somebody to not think the truth about who they are now, or to believe a lie about who they are now, which means they don't have a right history, you get to control them based on what you want them to believe.
Absolutely. And evolution is as much a religion as any other religion in the world. And it is a religion of hopelessness and confusion and lies. And what's unfortunate is most people who buy into these theories and these doctrines, it's all rooted in the age-old human desire to create something like a utopian culture here on Earth. Well, we're just going to put it this way. We've studied history enough to know that this is not a new goal. And every time that it has been tried in history, implemented in history, it has ended with a complete and utter disaster in usually millions of people's lives. Yeah. It is just not going to happen here on Earth. So in reality, all this has very little to do with actual history, really, of the world or the country. It does have much to do with broken philosophy and worldview that has grown in the rocky soil of the human race's mantra since the fall. We must find something besides God to fill our souls.
Wow.
You probably have noticed that purging history has 2 stages. First, removing anything that doesn't meet the current standard of tolerance. Thus, we are seeing Civil War statues defaced or toppled. Everything that has been found guilty in the trial room of political correctness and racial segregation and acceptance and validation of gender confusion, all of it. And it has been replaced with something they believe does meet those standards, right? So what we have is condemning and removing of classic children's literature. Like, I just pulled these 2 just because I have these on my shelf. And
one of those.
Yeah. And it because they find it offensive, right? Because it contains historical settings, events, jargon, scenarios from a past era, all of which that they find offensive now. And then they replace it with something just wonderful. I just want you to know that I Googled these.
Oh, wow.
Yep, I Googled these. I found these on Google Images. And now I'm getting all kinds of pop-ups asking me if I want to see more.
Wow.
Yes, because that's what happens.
So they're literally taking out the classics because it has something they disagree with and using that and then replacing it with the latest and greatest. Wow. If you're on the podcast listening, she's showing a book called The Hips on the Drag Queen Go Swish, 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 and Uncle Bob's Wedding. And it's two guys that are getting married. And clearly there is an agenda going out in this, in these titles. That's pretty clear and sad. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And, I'm not going to park on this too long because honestly, this could be an entire session on its own. I've studied many years about childhood trauma. And I look at these things and I think to myself, where in the world, on what planet is it okay to have this kind of thing that children are being force-fed and this is being normalized for these children?
How would you come out we see the tearing down of statues right now. I'm really curious about that. When you're saying, hey, we need to be a keeper of real history, are you going, hey, even if these guys, because you'd have to get rid of George Washington, I mean, our founding president, they're trying to take down, like you said, Civil War statues and Robert E. Lee statues. And okay, so walk us through a proper biblical perspective of that. What should we be thinking when we see these things?
Well, I'm not even really a person who appreciates statues for the statues themselves. It's what they represent, and it's like a book burning. It's this attitude that we get to decide what everybody in the country should think about something that it's offensive. You know what I mean? There's where is the freedom in being able to say that man, any of these statues of people from the past, that man was a man. He had good traits. He had bad traits. He did good things. He did bad things. Everything he did wasn't golden. Everything he did wasn't junk. So why can't we just have some balance in life? Why can't we just have some where, that expression, where's the happy medium? I am a person who believes that there is, this is a free country. If people want to write books like this, it's a free country. But why replace something that has been established with something like this? Why can't we have the right to have both? Okay, I don't agree with this stuff. But like I said, I am a person that believes in free speech. So make a book like this. That doesn't mean that I have to go look at it, and it doesn't mean that my kids need to go look at it. Now I have grandchildren. I have 3 little grandsons and a little granddaughter on the way. And it's like, where I guess I'm going to be keeping every book I own. Real book.
Yeah. You got the best of the best. Erica in the chat. Man, Erica, you're putting in a lot of great scripture here. So true. Reminds us of 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. I won't read it all, but it's that passage that says, knowing this first, that in the last days, perilous times will come. Men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unforgiving, adulterers, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, heady, high-minded. I remember memorizing this back in school. And yeah, great point. Here's what we're seeing. That statue wasn't erected in order to show off and showcase the bad that person had done. It was to talk about the good that they had done. So where's the good? Where do we find that? That's exactly what you want people to do in you. If we were to unpack your life, we could find plenty of bad to cancel you in life. The goal isn't to find all the bad you've done. It's to go, hey, is there anything good? Is there anything that you can bring to the table? So so it's okay to be balanced and to have both of these and talk about both of these and say, here's where they got it right. Here's where they got it wrong. And we need to be able to talk about both.
Exactly. And that's really what is being attacked, is the right to be able to look at the whole picture. If you don't meet the criteria of the political correctness of this day and age, then you are tried and found guilty and banished as the bad guy in history. And it's just wrong on every level. So yeah,
well,
this
Angela,
garbage
I was going to say, before
place.
I get banished on YouTube and Facebook, I need to kick them off so we can say some more egregious things according to their standards, okay? So, hey, YouTube and Facebook, thank you guys for hanging out with me for the first part of this conversation. If you want to join me next week, I'm going to be having a great conversation on the Bible, the origin story. What is the truth about where the Bible came from? It's with my friend Jay Seeger. You're really going to enjoy this conversation with Jay. The background of the Bible, where did we actually get it? Do we have the oracles of God? Do we have the Word of God, or is this just the words of man? Hey, I want you to get in touch with Angela. You can do that. Angela, I'm assuming the best way is the podcast. That's the way I learned about it, through the Keepers of History or podcast. Is that the best way to get in touch with you or to get your information?
Yeah, there's a contact form right on my website right there. So
perfect. Yep. So get on there. It's in the chat, and make sure you check and get. Do you have an email list? Do you let people subscribe to what you do, or is the podcast the best subscription thing to get on?
I have both. I
have both. Okay. Either way, jump on. Your kids are going to love listening to. I was literally the last several days been listening to some of her podcasts. It's got the little boy's face just like that. Jump on that podcast, hit subscribe. Real cool history for kids. Make sure you're jumping on there. And I love it because you're actually interacting with your audience, Angela. You're doing you're wishing happy birthday to people that are on your podcast listeners and on your list. So anyway, and you get lots of shows that come from ideas from guests. So if you have an idea of a time in history that you want Angela to talk about, you can write her and let her know that. That is a really cool way of always having popular shows, is doing what people are asking you to talk about. I love it. So guys, look forward to seeing you next week. If you want to join me for the rest of the show with Angela and get access to everything we do, come on over to creationtoday.org and just partner with us for any amount, and you can join us for everything we've done, past, present, and future. I'll see you over at creationtoday.org.